Our speaker this morning to lead off is Professor Fred Mittelstaedt. Professor Mittelstaedt is the chair of the Accountancy Department. He took that responsibility over this past August. He's been at Notre Dame since 1992 after getting his PhD from the University of Illinois in 1987. Professor Mittelstadt's focuses in accounting are financial accounting and reporting. He's done a lot of work on retirement benefit issues. He's been published widely. He is very much involved with everything that goes on with the Masters of Accountancy program, which I think everybody knows is the so-called fifth year of the accountancy track. So let's give Professor Fred Mittelstaedt a welcome and hear what he has to say.
Thank you. When I first came here 16 years ago, my daughter was 2, and now she's applying to Notre Dame, so she's just a year younger than you guys are, so it's hard to, she still seems like she's 2 to me sometimes, so it's hard to think of her as old as you guys are, but she'll be sitting out here, maybe not in this class, but at least in some class maybe next year. What I'd like to do today is just walk through some key things about accountancy as a major in general, and then also more specifically the way we do it here at Notre Dame, what some of the opportunities are. And if I say something that you want to ask me about right then, just go ahead and ask me, and I'll answer it, or I'll say, wait a second, I'll get to another slide that deals with that. So we'll keep this as informal as possible. What I'd like to talk about then is, again, kind of accountancy at ND, exactly what the 150-hour requirement means. Does it mean you have to get 5 years, or how should that be interpreted? Why maybe you should think about accountancy as a major, and then tied to that are careers in accountancy, and then I'll show you a little bit of what people have done over the last 4 years, what kind of jobs they've taken, whether they've gone to graduate school, and so on. Now, here this is our mission statement that we just revised, and this is the undergraduate mission. Again, the undergraduate program is a 4-year degree, so it's like 126 hours. So it's not like architecture where you have to go 5 years, it's just a 4-year degree. And the mission here is to offer a high-quality program that educates a national student body for careers in professional accounting, for careers that involve accounting, and for graduate study. So we think of accounting as fairly broad, just like any other discipline you would get at Notre Dame, that if you want to go to law school, it's great preparation for that. If you want to start in public accounting and then go do something else, it's just a great foundation for anything that you want to do in business. And so we try to keep it as general as possible, but still give you the specifics that you need. Okay? And then the curriculum itself that emphasizes general skills and specific content expertise. And the skills, you can see there, communication, critical thinking, ethics, global issues. Now, both of these, again, are foundational skills. And when you first start out, that's where you use a lot of the accounting technical skills. But then before long, you've got to write memos and communicate your views. And then what really separates people later on is how well you work in a group, how well you communicate ideas either to clients or to other people you're working with, how well you sell work. So a lot of times you don't think about accounting as selling, but you got to generate business, or if you're working in a corporation, you got to sell your ideas. So all of that is about problem solving, critical thinking, communicating. And if you start out as an accountant, like I said, you might use your skills that you've picked up, your technical skills that you've picked up at Notre Dame the first few years, but before long, you're essentially running a business. You're managing people underneath you that are working for you. You're managing jobs. You're trying to determine a budget. So anything that you would do to run your own business at some point, generally you're doing that in the first few years out of school. So like in College of Business, we have you take marketing and finance and management, computer, as well as 2 sophomore level accounting courses. You apply all of those things when you go out to work as a public accountant or in another job where you use a lot of accounting. Okay, it's not like you can say, well, all I know is journal entries, so don't ask me any questions. I can't write my name or that type of thing. You really have to be able to use all the skills that you get out of the College of Business and then also out of Notre Dame. Research, the type of research we would think about is general research if you're doing some type of analysis of a company. But then also there are if you're doing tax work, you have to be able to research the tax code or court cases. If you're doing financial reporting, there are rules that deal with how you handle different items in financial statements. So you have to be able to research like a specific set of authoritative literature. And then teamwork and technology I already mentioned here. And then specific to accounting, it's measurement. So like what's an asset, how would you measure it in certain cases, and how might you apply the literature, the authoritative literature. In accounting now we have a lot more things that are measured at fair value, but not everything has a market price like a stock price, so you have to be able to estimate what the fair value would be, so you have to know more about statistics. You have to know about valuing something under uncertainty. So it's not like everything is given to you. I think it's easy to think, well, all I'm doing is bookkeeping as an accountant, but today for an accountant, you're dealing in a world of uncertainty, and you really bring to bear a lot of your problem-solving skills. It's not like everything's cut and dry. Analysis, again, this could be analyzing financial statements, analyzing information for making an investment decision. But we start to give you the tools, and you can pick up more if you go on to graduate school or when you get out in practice. And then finally, validation. That's primarily related to auditing. So like after a firm has completed its financial report, its annual report, auditors go in and make sure that they've applied the rules correctly. Okay, so those are kind of the focus, the specific content in general that you're going to get from an accounting degree. Now, the curriculum in the junior year, like I said earlier, you have 2 sophomore level accounting classes that all College of Business majors take. But then in your junior year, you take, this would be junior and senior year, you take a couple financial reporting courses. Those are the measurement and disclosure courses. So these are like companies like Apple or Nike would have to prepare their annual reports, and talks about what has to be on the income statement, what has to be in the balance sheet, what types of disclosures have to be made in order to give enough information to investors. And then these are the financial statements that auditors would audit or verify, validate. Another course that you would take as a junior or senior would be accounting for decision making and control. This is like internal accounting decisions, so it could deal with budgets. It could also deal with investment decisions, how to consider taxes, how to estimate cash flows going out into the future, whether you decide to invest in a certain project or not. Decision processes in accounting, that's getting at making decisions under uncertainty. The way the course is designed is kind of like an applied stats course, and it has a lot of add-ons with Excel. How many of you have used Excel before? Okay, so these are packages you don't normally get with Excel, but it helps you estimate, say, option values, or again, this notion of trying to come up with a value on a project but allow for uncertainty. It seems like so many problems, it just says assume you're going to get $5,000 next year, $5,000 a year, 2 years down the road, $10,000 3 years down the road. But what happens if there's uncertainty around each of those amounts? How do you handle it? So that's what this class tries to get at. Assurance service, valid financial statements, and then federal taxation. There we cover individual and then also corporate income issues. Now, some rankings of the program. The undergraduate program, fourth in this survey of professors. So these are professors around the country that rank accounting departments around the country. Now, typically, the school that produces the most professors typically gets ranked the highest, but we don't have a PhD program, so it's good that we're ranked this high because Illinois and Texas have produced the most professors, so there's no wonder that that those two are the top two just about every year. And then the other school that's in third is BYU. And they don't have a PhD program either. So I think that we're respected around the country. We're ranked 8th in the U.S. News and World Reports. Our MSA program in this Public Accounting Report Survey is 5th. And then the department is ranked 10th and 9th in Financial Statement Times and Wall Street Journal, respectively. So, I mean, we're one of the top programs in the country. And we're recognized as that. Okay? Now, I've mentioned this a couple times. What's the 150-hour requirement? Well, most states require you to have 150 hours of college credit before you can take the CPA exam. Okay? Now, does that mean you have to have a 5th year? No, it doesn't. Okay? It depends on the state. In Illinois, you have enough accounting as an undergrad to satisfy the accounting requirements in Illinois. So all you need are the hours. Okay, you don't need any more accounting hours, you just need the hours. But in states like Texas, Michigan, Florida, you're going to need more accounting hours. There's a couple states that actually require a master's degree. Utah is one, and I think Florida might be one, where you actually have to have a master's degree. But most states just say you need hours. Okay? Now, how do you get the hours? We have a 1-year master's program, and the advantage of the master's program is you get more accounting, so that allows faster advancement at the employer, and in some cases it could reduce the experience requirements you need to be licensed as a CPA. But there are other ways of getting it. AP credit. So a lot of times people will be close to the 150 hours once they count their AP credit. Summer school overloads. So there are a variety of ways of getting close to the 150 hours so that maybe you graduate, you only need 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours to get the 150 hours. Takes the summer school, and so you'll be what they call CPA ready. And that's what the larger firms are looking for. Are you CPA ready? Which means, do you have the 150 hours? Do you satisfy the state licensing requirements or the requirements to take the CPA exam? Okay? So but the message here is if you choose an accounting major, you aren't locking yourself in for 5 years. You can. I mean, there's nothing. I think that we have a great master's program. Remember, we're ranked 5th in the country. And employers like to recruit from our master's program, but you aren't making that decision when you become an accounting major. Especially if you're thinking about going to law school or doing something else where you may not necessarily want the 5th year. But you can also get the 150 hours. Why accountancy then? Just increased demand from a societal level for accountability. I already mentioned it's a great foundation for any career in business. Flexible lifestyle. You don't have to be in accounting that long typically to get some control over your schedule. The longer you're there, the more more control you have. You just have to get the work done. It doesn't always have to be at the client. If your child is running cross country, someday you want to go out and see them. Well, as long as you make some arrangements, usually you can get out and do that. Now, it might be that you're working till midnight that night to finish up all your work, but you can get out of the office, and I think that's a real nice feature of accounting. Also, again, as you've been with a firm for a while, they make a lot of efforts to try to keep people. They realize that people are their most valuable asset, so they'll work on flexible work schedules with you. Maybe you want to drop to 60% time for some reason. So I think that the large CPA firms, I'd say all the CPA firms, are way ahead of people in thinking about, or way ahead of firms in thinking about how to retain a valuable workforce, how to adjust to changing lifestyles or changing needs as you go through your career. Okay? Maybe this is an oxymoron, exciting and accounting in the same sentence, but it's an exciting time for accounting, in part because of the global issues that are going on. There's a lot of discussion of going to international accounting standards away from what we've been using for U.S. This is for financial reporting. A lot more transactions going on internationally. So this is a time that we're seeing a lot of changes, and I think anytime there's change, that means there's a lot of opportunity, and it's just interesting. I already mentioned our job and graduate placement rates are some of the highest in the country. You always need accountants, no matter what the economy is doing. We're a national recruiting priority. That means that they recruit nationally here, so it's not like, well, unless you want to work in Chicago, we don't recruit here. They'll refer your name to New York, California, Denver, wherever you want to, and really want you to work for their firm. They don't really care what city. About half of our students will normally go to Chicago, but then the rest all over the place. The next highest from Chicago is New York. Okay, so, we see people moving towards the financial centers. These firms, and this ties again to the flexibility and also a good place to work, the Big Four firms top Business Week's list of best places to start a career. So again, just how much you learn and the work environment is a reason for that. And then finally, we just have excellent faculty. Most of our faculty have won some type of teaching award, and they take a lot of time with students and try to make sure that you learn. So where's the work? Public accounting, audit, tax, transaction services. This would be mergers and acquisitions and valuations. Forensic accounting. This is where you go in and try to detect fraud. There could be litigation support. So there's a lot of things you could do with public accounting. You work as an accountant in a corporation. Eventually as like a CFO, but you might start off in the accounting or internal audit department or in the tax department. Consulting, like an Accenture or the public accounting firms also have wings of consulting or branches of consulting. You might decide to go into law school. The last thing that you should think about, and it's a great career, is to be a professor. Okay? You have any idea what the average age of an accounting professor is? This is across the country, not just here, but it's probably close to here. What do you think the average age of an accounting professor is nationwide? What do you think? That's pretty close, 55. 55 is the average age. And I think a third of the faculty teaching are over 60. Okay. Now, right now, there aren't enough people in the PhD programs to replace everybody that could retire. I think I'd have a heart attack if everyone that came into my office that could retire told me they were going to retire. It was like, well, I don't have anyone to teach. Some of the people have so much knowledge, it's just hard to even contemplate them ever retiring. I've told some of the people that they just can't retire. So we'll see what happens there. But think about keeping up your math skills. And while you're at Notre Dame, and Sam has plans, Sam's office has plans where you can kind of do dual degrees to keep up your math. There are classes in the master's program, if you stay for a master's program, that also help you think about being a professor at some point. And you may want to work for a couple of years and then come back and be a professor. I can tell you I think it's a great life. It's a great life. Now, what the salaries look like? Well, when you start, and this is someone who's CPA ready, CPA exam ready. So you've got 150 hours, so maybe you've got a master's degree, or you've taken AP credit, or you've done other stuff. Starting off somewhere around 55, that's what Chicago paid last year. And maybe there's a bonus, maybe there isn't, but somewhere around 55. If you stay to a manager, this is in a big four firm, so this would be like PricewaterhouseCoopers, KPMG, Deloitte, Ernst & Young. Those are the big four. If you stay 5 years and make manager, 4 to 5 years, you're making around $100,000. Now, the knock on accounting used to be, well, you just stay 2 years. That's not true anymore. Again, you try to the firms are trying to retain talent. So they've done all they can to try to keep people with them, either moving them into a different function or working around their schedule, trying to keep people. So now about half the people are still there after 5 years. So like 5 years out, 4 or 5 years out, making $100,000, it's not that bad. Okay? Now, if you can make partner, if you're enjoying what you're doing, you're still excited about the work, you like going to work, new partners will make about $350,000. And this is out 11 or 13 years. Now, the average partner, and these stats just started being released because of some congressional committees that are doing work on the auditing profession. Average partner, so this could be someone that just started or someone that's been out 30 years, 25 years with a firm, $750,000. Okay, so that means like some people are making a couple million. You get units just like you would if you're working for these are partnerships. So just like you might get stock options if you're working for a corporation, you get additional units that you buy in, and the more units you have, the more compensation you get. That's how these things are set. Okay, so I think when you're looking at a career, you can't just look at the starting salary. You have to look at what the progression is. People that leave public accounting, usually it's because they're going to make more money doing something else, or they just like the work someplace else more. But it's not like all of a sudden you drop down below $55,000. I think $55,000 is kind of the floor, and then you move up for there. And if you're working for a corporation, you can have stock options and all that kind of stuff where you can get the really high salaries. Some example of our graduates. You can see where they're working and kind of what their titles are. Nike USA, CFO, FedEx, VP Internal Audit. Mark Chain's a partner at Deloitte. He's not just a partner. We have a lot of partners. Notre Dame has probably more partners than any other school in the country at the big four firms. But our partners are also, or our graduates are also leaders in the firm. So Mark Chain is head of national independence at Deloitte. You may own your own business. Hummer owns Whole Health Incorporated. Drew Paloff is the VP and controller here at Notre Dame. He's one of our undergrads. Claire Ricker, CFO at Fidelity Investments. Cindy Smetana, Director of Finance, Chicago Catholic Charities. Deputy Chairman and Chief Operating Officer at KPMG, that's John Viemeyer. And then we've got Jenny Wilson, who's CFO at Victoria's Secret. Now, these CFO titles, a lot of times you think, oh, that can only be a finance person. No. I mean, the CFOs a lot of times are usually accountants because you've got to be able to read an annual report of companies you're acquiring, and you've got to be thinking about how transactions are going to affect your financial statements. And so a lot of CFOs are accountants. And these are just an example of some that have come out of our program. Now, the last thing I'll show you is just kind of what our graduates have done. And what this shows over time is about 30% of our graduates will go to public accounting right out of undergraduate. And the people that go out are CPA ready, so they're close to 150 hours. They're generally like 145 hours, 150 hours. So the Big Four will hire them. The other CPA firms will hire them. And then you have other people going to grad school. You have some other people going to industry. So it's kind of a mix of what people do. We'll usually take at least a third of the students into our master's program. That varies from year to year. But this gives you an idea of what people do with their degree. So a lot going to MS in accountancy programs either here or other universities. And then you have some go to law school. It seems like we had one person go to med school one year. So you have all kinds of different career paths for people. And there's one thing, I'll still answer some questions, but I wanted to point out one more thing. Let's see. If you want to hear more about the accounting major, Beta Alpha Psi is putting on a presentation tomorrow, and it's in Jordan Auditorium at 7. And this is really aimed at sophomores, but I'm sure that freshmen would like it too. And I think there's refreshments after that. Okay, and I'll end there. I'm sorry I went over my time a little bit, but I'll still take some questions. Yeah.
Fred, you might want to tell them what Beta Alpha Psi is. They would know.
Oh, I'm sorry. Beta Alpha Psi is the honorary organization for accounting students. So you're in Beta Alpha Psi. You can join Beta Alpha Psi as a junior. We also have an indie accounting club that you can join as a sophomore. Okay. An internship. Yeah, or I can repeat it. Like, what are the opportunities if you want to go on to law school, say for an internship? I think the opportunities for the internship may still be tied to public accounting or tied to corporations, even if you think you want to go to law school. They're thinking, well, if I make your experience good enough, you might come into public accounting rather than going on to law school. So that might be what would be available to you. I'm not sure that law firms would really hire undergrads. I think law firms are more likely to hire people that are in law school. But I know that an accounting major just gives you great foundational experience for going on to law school, not just if you're going to tax, but just you understand contracts, I think, a lot better coming out of accounting than you might some other disciplines.
Do we have other questions?
For you. Yeah.
I actually spoke with someone this past weekend who's an accounting major, who's a senior, and she's, I think, is going to go work with Deloitte next year. And I was just curious, like, what is kind of like a day in the life of an accountant, like, who works for one of the big 4 companies?
Let's say that you're in auditing. That's where you would look at financial reportings. You might have like a section that you're responsible for. Say that there's trying to think of a good example. Let's say that there's a transaction where there's some question on whether you should be recognizing revenue. So it's not like a cash transaction. It's like I do some work for you, but you're going to pay me 5 years out. So there's some question whether you should be treating that as income today. So like what an auditor would do is detect some of those transactions and then have to decide that they follow the rules or do I need to look something up. And so what you're doing as an auditor is looking at where your risk is in the financial statements. Is it tied to how much income they're recognizing, or is it tied to their expenses? Is there some type of measurement issue? And then you kind of divvy up the work just like you do with group projects, and you've got the newer people handling the easier stuff, and then more senior people handling the harder stuff, and then you have managers review that, and you have partners then review the whole thing. So it's a lot like just doing group projects. You have a new group project each time that you come in. I think that's probably the best way to describe it.
Okay, sorry, I have another question. So you said also earlier in your presentation that, like accounting is going towards more like a global, I guess, scene. And can you kind of elaborate on that? Like, what would it mean exactly for the accounting, I guess, business to go international?
Okay? It affects it a couple of ways. One is that the larger firms and even the mid-sized firms want you to have more international experience because a lot of them want you to do a tour of duty, say in Spain, or if you speak Mandarin in China, just because so much of the financing is done in other parts of the world. You're always after the cheapest financing possible or the cheapest inventory, and so it may be that you're getting the financing in one part of the world and then your inventory in another part of the world. So you've got to feel comfortable talking with people from other cultures. So that's one aspect of it, and I think that's one of the reasons they like people from Notre Dame, because so many of you have gone abroad and a lot of you speak another language and you just feel comfortable going into another culture. So that's just in general, but then specifically to financial reporting, right now the standards are set by an organization in the U.S. called the Financial Accounting Standards Board. So we have our accounting, but a lot more countries, especially in Europe, and then Australia and China is adopting a version of this, something called International Accounting Standards. And these are set by a group in the UK. That's where they're based, in the UK. So we would have to, at some point, I expect that we'll change our financial reporting courses to teach the international standards instead of the US standards. So all the accountants here in the United States that have learned U.S. standards are going to have to learn the international accounting standards. There are a lot of similarities, but the example I gave earlier is, should this be included as income, it could be different under international standards than it would be under U.S. standards. So all the accountants are going to have to, I'd say within 5 or 6 years, be a lot more familiar with the international standards.
Okay, do we have any more questions for accounting? Okay, Dr. Mittelstaedt, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.